The Phantom of Harvest Street. In the late 19th century, Harvest Street, a quiet neighborhood in a growing American city, was the scene of a series of gruesome murders that bore striking similarities to the infamous Jack the Ripper. The killer, known only as the Phantom of Harvest Street, targeted women of the lower class, leaving the city in a state of fear and uncertainty. It was a chilly autumn night in 1880 when the body of Eliza Montgomery, a seamstress, was discovered in her small, dimly lit apartment. She was found on the floor, her throat slashed and her body mutilated. The crime scene was eerily organized, with a few personal items left in strange positions. The police, baffled by the brutality and precision, had no leads and no motive. As the days went by, Harvest Street became a place of whispers and terror. The newspapers covered Eliza's murder extensively, and soon similar crimes began to unfold. Each murder was executed with the same method, slashing throats and mutilating bodies, and left behind a distinct calling card, a blood-stained handkerchief with a cryptic symbol sewn into the corner. The second victim, Mary Collins, was a laundress found in her basement. The third, Sarah Johnson, a cook, was discovered in a dark alley. Each murder mirrored the previous one in method and presentation, and with each new crime, the police became more desperate. Detective Samuel Hayes, a seasoned investigator known for his methodical approach, was assigned to the case. Hayes meticulously reviewed the crime scenes and interviewed witnesses, but the Phantom was elusive. The cryptic symbol on the handkerchief, a circle with an X through it, led to more questions than answers. Hayes learned that each victim had worked in similar trades and frequented the same establishments, hinting that the killer might be someone familiar with the victims' daily lives. The detective focused on the local community, trying to piece together any connections between the victims and the enigmatic symbol. Just as the city was beginning to recover from the shock of the first three murders, the Phantom struck again. This time the victim was Margaret Hayes, the detective's own wife. The murder took place in their home, and Margaret was found in their living room. The same calling card was left behind. Devastated but resolute, Hayes threw himself into the investigation with renewed urgency. He combed through every lead, revisited every witness, and redoubled his efforts to understand the pattern behind the killings. Determined to find a breakthrough, Hayes studied the calling card symbol closely. He discovered that it resembled a logo from a local gentleman, Detective Hayes. Convinced that the Gentleman's Club was the key, began investigating its members. The club was known for its exclusivity and catered to wealthy and influential men, many of whom had connections to the victims. Hayes focused on a prominent member, Charles Davenport, a well-respected banker with a mysterious past. Hayes discovered that Davenport had been deeply in debt and had a history of erratic behavior. He also found out that Davenport had a personal connection to several victims through business transactions and social interactions. The detective believed that Davenport's financial troubles and personal grievances could have driven him to commit the murders. To confirm his suspicion, Hayes set a trap. He arranged a public event at the Gentleman's Club and planned to observe Davenport closely. As the event unfolded, Hayes watched Davenport's behavior and interactions, waiting for any sign of guilt. During the event, Hayes noticed Davenport acting unusually nervous. When Davenport slipped away from the crowd, Hayes followed him discreetly. He found Davenport in a secluded area of the club where he was seen handling a blood-stained handkerchief, the same type left at the crime scenes. Confronted with the evidence and under intense questioning, Davenport broke down. He admitted to the murders, revealing that he had been driven by a combination of financial desperation, personal vendettas, and a twisted sense of superiority. Davenport had used his position of power to avoid suspicion, but his compulsive need for control and recognition led him to leave the symbolic handkerchiefs as a taunt to law enforcement. Davenport was arrested and tried for the murders. The trial was highly publicized, and his conviction brought a sense of closure to the community. However, the fear and trauma left by the Phantom of Harvest Street lingered. The once quiet neighborhood had been forever changed by the horrors that had unfolded. Detective Hayes, though hailed as a hero, was haunted by the personal loss of his wife and the toll the investigation had taken on him. He continued his work with a renewed sense of vigilance, determined to prevent such tragedies from occurring again. In the end, the Phantom of Harvest Street was brought to justice, but the shadow of his crimes continued to cast a pall over the city, serving as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the facade of normalcy.